This is the Church of St. Paul in the Desert.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know, my name is Eric Law. I'm one of the priests that hang out at St. Paul's, and I'm one of those priests that was embraced wholeheartedly by this loving, beloved community of St. Paul in the desert. So I want to thank you all for my praying, for your prayers and support. The pouring out of the love is amazing. With this last month, this is exactly almost a month since my surgery to remove something inside me that was attacking me. And prognosis is fairly good, so we'll keep you updated. But this is my first outing, so pray for me. So when something drastic happens, things change. You know, that's what today's lesson is about, transfiguration. It's not, some of you are wondering why are we doing transfiguration and it's not Transfiguration Sunday, for those of you long-time Episcopalian, right? Well, here's the reason. Remember the beginning of Epiphany? What was the first Sunday of Epiphany? We read about the baptism of Jesus, and what did God say to Jesus? This is my beloved Son with whom I'm well pleased. And today is the last day of Epiphany before Lent. And again, we hear the echo of that line. This is my beloved Son. And then God added one more line. Listen to him. So, transfiguration is often about mountaintop experience. It's about change. Moses went up the mountain, got the 10 Commandments, come back, changed. Okay, and Jesus took his disciples up to the mountaintop, and things changed, right? But the reaction of Peter was that of not change. Okay, Peter's reaction is that this is so cool, you know? We know about Moses, we know about Elijah, so Jesus is just one of those folks, you know, who will save us. Let's just keep everything the same like here. So Jesus' expectation was that Jesus was just going to be like either Moses or Elijah in his messiahship, because Jesus has confessed that Jesus was the Christ. And you know, normally that's pretty calm, cool, yeah, you know, I mean, but here's the thing, God didn't like it. God appeared again, you know, in a cloud covered, and a voice says, and God didn't like it, and we'll explain why. And God's response was that this is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased, and you all listen to him. I just come back from the south, so you know, you all listen to him. Okay, you listen to him. Why? Because we have a tendency of taking someone's past or tradition and using that to predict or confine and control someone's future. Okay? Now, but Peter and Jesus and all the disciples, you know, were all Jewish. So they all grew up with stories about Moses, I'm sure. About Moses liberating Israelites from slavery. Okay? And they probably grew up with stories about the prophets, like Elijah confronting Israel's king to align their power with God's will. They probably grew up with many stories like that. And of course, when we proclaimed that Jesus was the new Messiah, then of course those stories come to shape how we think about Jesus. It's a normal thing, right? But the thing is, Jesus is in a different world than when Moses was. Okay, so Moses was functioning as a leader when all of Israelites were enslaved. So Moses as a liberator, you know, is the right kind of leadership. And in Elijah's time with the prophet, Israel was his own kingdom with his own king. So the prophet challenging the powerful within that system is the right kind of leadership. But Jesus at that time were living in a world where the Israelite, the Jewish people, were occupied by the Romans. And their king was a puppet of the Roman government. Completely different setting. And God says, no. You cannot expect or confine Jesus' ministry using old context, an old way of thinking what a Messiah should be, and put that onto Jesus. No. And here's the reason why. Because Jesus is a beloved child of God. With him, God is well pleased. Jesus didn't have to do anything, conform to anything in order to get my love. Jesus didn't have to earn my love. Didn't have to earn your love, Peter. Because Jesus is already loved and beloved. And Jesus' messiahship flows out of that belovedness. Okay, get that? Flow out of that belovedness, and therefore Jesus can be free to listen and to interact with the world that he was in. Not during Moses' time, not during Elijah's time. So Jesus is free to explore, to be what God is calling him to be because he is beloved. He didn't have to do anything that anybody has done in the past in order to prove himself to be the Messiah because he is already beloved. So, now, that's easier said than done, right? We humankind, tend to use people's past to condition the future. How many of you are the youngest in a big family kind of thing? Okay, all right, youngest united, okay. Okay, as the youngest of 6 children, everybody in my family remember everything I ever said and done from the day I was born. And they used that, to condition my future, right? So I was ever since I was a baby, as soon as I could talk, I was a storyteller. I make up stories. That's one of the things one of the tale my family tells. The family entertainment was to sit Eric down and have him tell story. So I would have this, 3-year-old, however old I was, free association and tell stories. So one of the famous story was that because I was child number 6, I free associated with that and say, when I grow up, I'm going to have 6 wives. And that stuck for some reason, right? Now, I have something to live up to because my father actually had 3 wives. And 2 of them were simultaneous. Okay? That was in China, okay? There was no law against any of that, right? So, and then there was rumor in my family that my father's second wife's sister was secretly in love with him too. So, my father was a ladies' man, apparently, right? And I have a lot to live up to, so they all expected me to be like my father, to be a ladies' man, and were they wrong? Oh boy. That's, that was a funny one, all right? And then, now, another thing about me, I love to sing. Ever since I could have mixed sound, I was singing. So one of the family story was that when I'm in the bathroom, okay, doing my thing, right? And I didn't think anybody would hear me because the door is shut, right? I would be singing on top of my lungs the latest song in the radio, right? And so one of the famous songs that I used to sing was Can't Buy Me Love by the Beatles. And I would sing, Can't Buy Me Love, in the bathroom. On top of my lungs, didn't think anybody would listen, right? And of course, the whole family, every time I go to the bathroom, will be crowding on the outside, figuring out what I was to sing and giggling all the way. And so another assumption would be, Eric's going to grow up to be a singer. And they were right. Yes, I just come up with a new album, by the way. You can go to Spotify and Amazon, iTunes, to get it, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, talk to your grandkids, okay? So, so I'll tell you more about it later, okay? So I continued to sing, and that was okay, right? But the thing is, when we get into the habit of using someone's past to condition what the person's future is going to be, sometimes it could be amazing, I'm right. Sometimes it's just downright wrong. Sometimes it could be oppressive. Okay, so God was angry with Peter because Peter confined Jesus based on the tradition, the past. And Jesus says, no, you don't do that to my son because he is beloved. He can be anything he wants to be as long as he knows he's beloved. So, back to me. This sermon is about me, all right? So, and when I was a teenager, high school in New York, now I have a brilliant brother who have gotten a PhD in electrical engineering. And he actually designed semiconductors before there were semiconductors, okay? And he was brilliant, And of course, they expected me, the younger brother, to follow his footsteps, and they have evidence to prove that I can do that, because I was good. I have A's, all A's in math and science. I have advanced science in high school and so on. So of course, Eric's going to be a scientist or engineer or doctor or something like that, right? And all my counselors believe that. High school counselors said, "Oh, you should go to technical school," and I believe them. Now, the problem with that is that when we make those assumptions using someone's past or someone's family's history and so on, we become myopic. We become tunnel vision. We see only what we want to see. And we stop listening to the person. So now, when I was 14, did anybody listen when I got up in a high school talent show with my guitar and I sang an original song that I wrote about the Chinese-American experience? And I sang all over Manhattan on radios and everything, get invited to do that. Did anybody listen? I was writing poetry and stories that got published in the school magazine. Did anybody listen? And in church, I was the organist at the age of 14 in the mission in Chinatown, and there was no one to play any instrument, so I got drafted, and I tried my best to play, and did anybody listen? And that those are the gifts that I exhibited, but people didn't see it because they're all tunnel vision. Now, just to be fair, there were music teachers who saw my gift. There were English teachers who encouraged me to keep writing, and I still remember that. And I have been writing ever since. I'm a writer at heart as well. But the problem is this conspiracy of using my past to control my future is not just people around me. I was part of that. I believed that. And I stopped listening to myself. I felt that I have to conform to what they're expecting me to be in order to earn their love. If I don't go to science in the science field, I won't be loved by my family. I thought I had to earn their love by conforming. So I was part of that. Okay? And years later, after I got my electrical engineering degree and my pre-med degree, I was one of those crazy kids that do a lot of things. And I worked as an engineer for a number of years. And then I finally heard that voice in me that says, Eric, you are a beloved child of God, and God is well pleased with you, Eric. And that you can be anything you want to be as long as you know you're beloved. You don't have to earn that. And that freed me to explore. So I have my, first midlife crisis at 22. Okay. And then I concluded I wanted to become a priest. That's how I wanted to use my gifts to interact with the world that was then. And I was very, very lucky to have family and friends who listened. I have a brother who listened to me and loved me, and said, Eric, do what you want to do what you need to do. We already love you. That will not stop. My mother did that. My mother didn't like what I decided. She wanted a doctor in the house or another scientist, right? But she said, if this is what you want, I love you. I have always loved you. Go and do this. I got my mother's love. Isn't that wonderful? Even my boss at the engineering department saw that in me and say, Eric, you really fit better as a pastor than as an engineer. And the CEO of Corning Glass, who is Episcopalian, whom I work for, I went to see the CEO, and he said, yeah, you go be a priest. Wow. They listen. So here's the thing. Each one of you, are beloved sons and daughters of God. But more, God is well pleased with you. Okay? And you have to know that. You have to know that. Okay, so repeat after me. I am a beloved child of God. I am a beloved child of God. With whom God is well pleased. With whom God is well pleased. You got that? You believe it? Let's do it again. I am a beloved child of God, with whom God is well pleased. And I'm going to add one more. I will listen to me. I will listen to me. Okay, that's the key. You have to know that you're beloved, and you got to listen to that voice that emerge out of that sense of belovedness. And you know what God is calling you to be and to do. You will be free to use your gift to connect with the world and to make the world a better place, to conform with God's will for justice and peace. Okay? Now, the second thing we need to know is that don't be like my high school counselor. Don't be like some of my relatives who still got stuck that why didn't Eric stay being an engineer and make a lot of money, right? Don't be those who use the past to confine the people's future around you. So this is what you need to do next, okay? Can I borrow someone from back here? Yeah. Come on up. Don't you love our young people today? They rap beautifully. And your name is? Huh? Christoph, right? So this is what I'm going to ask you to do, okay? So go to someone and you say, Christoph, you are a beloved child of God with whom God is well pleased, and I will listen to you. Would you just say that back to me? Eric, beloved child of God with whom God is well pleased, and say that louder. I will.
And I will listen to you.
Got that? Thank you. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Say that to your spouse first. This is going to be hard. I will listen to you. Say, say that to your kids, your grandkids, your grandparents, and then say that to at least 3 people quickly. Okay? This is a working sermon. You can't just sit there, all right? So now I'll bring you back, okay? Let's go. Go. Do that. Go. I'm going to say this to the choir member. You are a beloved child of God with whom God is well pleased, and I will listen to you.
You are a beloved child of God with whom God is well pleased. I will listen.
Okay. Pass that along.
All right, I am a beloved child of God.
All right, so how did that feel? How did that feel? Have anybody ever said that to you? Okay. See, here's the thing. Each one of you are beloved, and every day could be a mountaintop experience where that voice that you need to listen to will say, sneak into your mind and say, you are a beloved child of God. And you got to listen to it. And you got to listen to each other's. When someone says, I had a mountaintop experience last night, you say, I will listen to that. Okay? Very important. That's how we claim our belovedness and to do the ministry that God is calling us to do. So let's take it home a little bit more. St. Paul's in the desert is a beloved community of God. Yes? Say it with me. St. Paul's in the desert is a beloved community of God with whom God is well pleased. Do you believe that? You bet. Now, as we look into the future of St. Paul, thank you, Stephen, for giving us an update. Okay? And don't make St. Paul be, the future St. Paul be the past St. Paul, using our history and tradition to condition the future. Why? Because if we are truly beloved, we can be free to interact with the world today, not last year, not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, not 50 years ago. And St. Paul has many experiences like that. Back in the 90s, when the world was faced with the AIDS crisis, and St. Paul recognized that we are beloved, recognized those who have AIDS as beloved, and we acted. Okay, and other people think we're crazy. But that, St. Paul, is great, was great. But today is different. We can't expect St. Paul's to be like the St. Paul's when you started coming to St. Paul. That's one of the big things that we do, right? But know your history, know your tradition, but more importantly, know that you are beloved. How many of you can ever imagine, for those of you who are around Palm Springs a long time, that Palm Springs would look like that? Palm Canyon, how many of you could ever imagine there were so many casinos right in downtown that bring in all kinds of Chinese, to gamble. And so I'm not the only Chinese person in Palm Springs. Isn't that cool? Right, yeah. So the next thing we need is good Chinese restaurant. All right, so, how many of you can really imagine that we are living in the world in the United States that we are now? where we're so divided, where we can't even talk about politics and our differences without walking away, without feeling bad, without yelling at each other. You know, we are in a different world, different contexts. And the only way that we, St. Paul's, in the desert, to continue to be relevant, continue to serve the people in this new context is to know that you are beloved. And from that place, listen, which is what Stephen charged us to listen. We have listening session coming up, right? Listen to each other. Listen to your voice. Listen to the community. So, say it with me. That's how we're going to end the sermon. St. Paul's in the desert is a beloved community of God, with whom God is well pleased. And we will listen. Amen.